All right, this is the Week 6 press conference with offensive coordinator quarterbacks coach Jake Spavital prior to facing Oregon State for homecoming on Saturday. We'll go ahead and get questions started with Jeff Ferrato from Cal Sports Report. Go ahead, Jeff.
Jake, how you doing?
What's going on, Jeff? Doing all right?
I'm all right. So can you take us through when you watch tape of Sam on Saturday, what you liked, where he still needs to work? He had been talking, you've been talking a lot about his decision-making. Has that improved? Or was the biggest issue simply he wasn't accurate enough, or was it a lot more complicated than that?
A little mixture of everything. You look at Sam's play, and I think all the quarterbacks right now are really in kind of that developmental stage and still working through just kind of building consistency. But you look at Sam, I thought Sam did some great things with his feet. Unfortunately, that they were negated by penalties. He had two very explosive runs. There were, like, when we're talking about the QB run game, there was some indecision on some things, but he did hit the right plays in certain moments, and those got called back. But there was also some that he missed out there on certain downs. But when you got to the passing game, I think we all know that the passing game is the most inconsistent thing that we have right now. And a lot has to do with getting to that second read. Sometimes with Sam, he's such a natural athlete that he wants to always utilize his running ability. And sometimes we just need to keep working on being in the pocket and getting through that progression. He was a little off on a couple throws, but he made some great throws to Jeremiah Hunter. He had two kind of fade balls that were big explosive plays, one in the first quarter and one in the second quarter for a touchdown. But he's doing some, he's just inconsistent right now with his footwork and getting through the progressions. But he did have some missed throws, as you guys saw, which happens with QBs at times. But I've seen him where he's been very accurate at times. But with us, and what we're working on is working to get to that second, third read and trusting the pocket and stepping up in the pocket and not always trying to revert to a scramble or try to make a play with his feet. So that's kind of what we've been working with, and we've kind of known about that for a while with Sam, and he shows great signs at it. It's just we just got to keep working on the consistency of just making sure you're staying in the pocket and getting through your progression.
Yeah, is it fair to say that quarterback position for Saturday is still unresolved? Yeah,
I would say so. Coach and I have had a lot of discussions about it, and we had discussions last week about playing Fernando. I think there's a lot of guys that are still in the mix for this for being able to play on Saturday. But we have a plan moving forward, and we need to. They all had a great practice today. We need to get another evaluation these next 2 days on these guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Next question will come from Emmanuel from the Daily Cal.
Good morning, Coach.
Good morning.
You touched on the quarterbacks. Kind of a more general question. What does the offense need to do to get past Oregon State's defense?
Yeah, you look at Oregon State's defense, very talented and, one of the top defenses in the country, very good at stopping the run. They hold teams to minimal points, very aggressive, very sound in what they do. And we've got to be very efficient. More importantly, we end up kind of being a one-dimensional team at times where we're just hammering the football. And I was really proud of this last week of how those guys put together an 18-play drive. Wish we would have finished that drive, but they put 18 plays together and milked about 7 minutes off the clock, which was good. But our pass game has to be more consistent. We got to be able to spread the ball, loosen up the defense, especially against a great run-stopping defense like Oregon State. We're going to have to get them running sideline to sideline. We're going to have to spread it around a little bit more so they don't have to. So we're not just a one-dimensional team going up against a team that's very good at stopping the run.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we'll go to Michael Wagman from Bear Insider.
Jake, when it comes to the quarterbacks and your play calling, is it a lot easier on you when it's one guy from start to finish like last week with Sam, or does it even matter to you? Are you guys going to do what you do regardless of who's back there or how many times guys have rotated in and out?
Yeah, I think the play calls change based off of which QB's in there. We spent a lot of time through fall camp and a lot of time through the summer and spring. Like with Sam and Fernando, I know what they're capable of doing. We try to keep developing on other facets of their game, just other things that they need to work on. But you try to call plays that are comfortable for those guys when they're in there. Try to call plays for Sam where he has better vision, better launch points in the pocket, some move the pocket stuff, some QB run game as well that he's very good at. When you get in with like Ben and Fernando, those guys are very similar. So you kind of spread it out a little bit more, and you have to use more RPO driven stuff based off of they're not the most mobile quarterbacks when they run. So you see two different styles. I think there was a different style of play when you go into the Washington game and the North Texas game. All right, the Washington game, we started with Ben. We were spreading it out a little bit. We were hitting some plays that we hadn't hit much, like a lot of those deep crossers across the middle. And then Sam came in and we changed up how like the flow of the game was more run RPO driven at the end of that Washington game. At the North Texas game, we were more run RPO, like we were more quarterback run game driven, quick game stuff with Sam. And then when Ben got in the game, we kind of opened it up a little bit more with more deeper down the field throws. So we know what all these quarterbacks are capable of doing. We just and it doesn't really matter who goes in the game. Like it's more about who's going to play the most efficient and consistently when they're doing it. And then I know what they're comfortable with. So like our play calls are going to be really benefited for them. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Our next question will come from Steve Croner from the SF Chronicle.
Yeah, Jake, just kind of following up what you said about all three QBs. Would it be out of the question for Fernando to get his first start Saturday night?
Like we'll see where that goes. I right now I think that all three of those guys are at the same level to me. It's been, I think there's a lot of frustration in the offensive room. I do think that we are playing hard and we're finding ways to kind of be efficient and move the ball when we need it to, and it shows up. But we all know that quarterback position needs to have more consistency. We've had 2 games with Idaho and this Arizona State where we've had just a little over 100 yards throwing, which I don't think I've ever had that in my entire career. And that's something that we've got to fix. And we've kind of had the discussion that all three of you guys, it's open and, may the best man win. And I think, there's a lot saying that you could see all three of them play at times. I've talked to coach about that, about whittling it down, just so he can at least figure out who the guy is. But I wouldn't be shocked if Fernando played or Ben or Sam. So it's kind of up in the air for all of them.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, we'll go to Matt Moreno from Rivals.
Jeremiah really seems to relish that role of being the go-to guy at receiver. What stood out to you as you've gotten to know him over these last several months?
And Jeremiah, he loves the game. I think he does a great job at he's a great competitor. And I think he's a very talented kid now. I'm saying, you see some of the catches that he makes, the one catch down our sideline that was questionable, when they reviewed it to see if he was in or not. That was a remarkable catch. And then his touchdown pass down on the to the north end zone. That was pretty impressive too for a back shoulder. And then if you look what he did in the Washington game, that goal line catch was arguably a top 10 moment for Sports Center. And I just think he's getting better every day. He wants to be great. He's taken a great leadership role in that room, very consistent in what he's doing, and he's turned into a great target. And I think is very comforting for our quarterbacks, because if you get in the vicinity of him, it seems like he comes down with it. He also had that touchdown catch versus Idaho. That was pretty remarkable too on the post going in the north end zone as well. So I just think his consistency and he practices the way he plays and it translates. And I think that kid's going to have a great career in the future as well.
All right, we'll go back to Jeff Verado from Cal Sports Reporter.
Yeah, Jake, as much as maybe Sam and other quarterbacks are getting comfortable with him, did you have any concerns on Saturday that I think he was the only wideout who caught a pass in the first 3 quarters?
Yeah, that is a concern. I know that I can't remember what the final stats were, 12 to 29. We've got to be able to spread the ball out more. I think that's the one thing that is truly missing of what we're doing is our pass game right now. I think that we kind of lose confidence in the pass game at times. We start off attacking and throwing down the field and going trying to spread it out as much as we can. But then as the game goes on and you see the consistency's not there and we have incompletions and it's hard to overcome a 2nd and long. And then we were in a lot of 3rd down and long, and our 3rd down and long, pass, threats was kind of irrelevant in this game, and that's something that we got to fix, and we've got to spread it all around. We need to get more guys active. When you look at the North Texas game, even the Washington game, we were spreading that ball out a little bit more evenly and a lot more touches. And that's what we got to get back to, it was good seeing at least Jack injuries getting a touch in there as well. I would love to get the tight ends more active. I want to get a lot more guys active and start spreading the ball a little bit more.
Ashton Stredick, I didn't carry the ball in the game. I don't know if he played at all. Was that just kind of what happened, or is he banged up? Or
I think that's just what happened. You start off we didn't have the ball very much in that first half, and especially in that first quarter. And then when you get kind of into the game, Jay Ott was running very well, 165 yards, was running extremely hard. I wanted to just kept feeding him the rock because I felt like he was one of the guys that was taking the game over, and then when we would spill him, we had put in Isaiah Fonse, who was running extremely hard too and has done a really good job. So we had to lean on that run game, especially in the second half, and try to milk the clock and try to, kind of gut one out and get a win. And, those guys finally pulled one out to get a win. And especially when there's frustration offensively, because we're not playing to the level that we're capable of doing, but at the end of the day, they found a way to win the game, which is a very positive moving into this week for Oregon State.
I heard a stat today, and I haven't confirmed it yet, but that you guys have run the second most offensive plays of any team in the country, behind only Penn State. Do you know that to be true? And if so, is it important, and why is it important?
Yeah, that I don't know, if I bet you we're high up there in the stats. I don't know exactly where we stand, but our kids are playing hard and they're getting to the right guys at times, and if you look at that 18 play drive, we were just literally gutting that thing out the entire time and just hammering the ball and getting 3-4 yards and then maybe a 10-yard run. And we're just, the kids are playing hard and with an edge, and it's showing that we're moving the ball, but we're not being explosive, and that's what we're missing. And that's where the pass game's got to come into play. I think when they know that, hey, we're not throwing the ball very well, then they load the box up and those yards get even tougher. But we do a good job at getting those yardages in really loaded boxes. And that's something where we've got to, you can't be upset with it all the time, but it's they're staying on the field. Our time of possession's good. We're trying to be efficient with it. They're fighting, they're playing hard, but we've got to be more explosive. And it all starts with getting that pass game going.
So if you were more explosive, you might have fewer plays, and that might be a good thing?
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, Thomas Dunn from Hyper, California.
Good morning, Jake. You talked about having to get Sam into trusting his progressions and what he sees. Justin was in here earlier talking about, possibly having more deliberate use of his legs. How do you ride the fine line of trying to develop Sam Jackson, the fifth, the pocket passer, versus using his natural athleticism and things like the zone read game from game to game?
Yeah, there's a fine line that you go with on that. You have I've had it with Johnny Manziel and Kyler Murray, guys that are very active, with their feet, and you tell them just utilize it when you need to. You want to look when you're calling pass, you've got to get through progression. You can't just always be a one progression guy and then go run the ball. All right, it's got to be going through your progression, then know when you got to use your feet. We do have the quarterback run game, which you guys see glimpses of that he hit a couple explosives on that got called back. Those are design plays for him that I think he's very dynamic with. But when you get in the pass game, we've got to be able to move through our progressions, and get to that second and third progression more without just saying not just scrambling after your first read's covered, or maybe you see a protection breakdown. So there is a fine line with that, because you don't want to handcuff him, because he's a very talented kid. And you see how dynamic he is with his feet, but we still have to have a threat of being able to go through progression and be that quarterback. And what I would do with Johnny, what I do with Kyler is, hey, get to 1, 2, 3, and then run, instead of getting down to your fourth progression, which is tough to get down to, which is normally a back in the flats or a flat presence for a check down. Just go use your feet and go get the first down, right? Because you're dynamic enough. But I've had it with different guys, with Will Greer and Geno Smith and Brandon Weed, and those guys were active enough where they can run they were more north and south, get north and south and slide after you get 5-6 yards and call it a play, and just chalk it up. But with Sam, he can actually hit that explosive play. So, trust your instincts, but more importantly, we got to make sure that you have the threat of throwing the football first.
Thank you.
All right, we'll wrap this up with one more question from Jeff Ferrado. Go ahead, Jeff.
Jake, this may be a stupid question, but I'm wondering, when you're a not real tall quarterback like Sam, is finding guys over the middle more difficult? And it seems like you guys run a lot of stuff to the outside, and I wonder if any of that is because of his stature. And you had one to injuries, like you said, over the middle, but not a lot of them. You don't see a lot of crossing stuff that you've done. Does that have anything to do with it or not?
Yeah, like this game, they're playing single high man free the entire game. They're playing press, so the ball typically sprays on the outside. Like to Jeremiah Hunter and things of that nature. But I have had, with Kyler and Johnny over the years, it was more about finding like launch points and like where they can sit in the pocket. Like the smaller quarterbacks, it's more about arm angles and trying to find vision in between offense linemen, find gaps and arm angles, and sometimes that gets difficult. I think Sam's got a very unique way to get the ball out. I do think when he looks back to that second read that's maybe crossing the middle and he may not have the vision needed, that's when he starts to scramble a little bit more. And he's just got to trust the protection. I let it develop, and I think he'll hit those balls. Like I've seen him hit them like a lot in practice. But it is, like smaller quarterbacks have to find ways to find vision and then be able to throw across the middle of the field.